You won't believe what just happened to Sophie Cunningham again. The WNBA just handed her another massive fine, and if you stick around, I'll tell you exactly how much money she's actually making from getting fined. Hit that subscribe button because we're breaking down why Sophie might be the smartest player in the league right now. So, Sophie Cunningham just got slapped with her 4th fine of the season. 4th. And this latest one, $1,500 just for talking about referees on her brand new podcast. Yeah, you heard that right. The WNBA is literally fining players for having conversations on podcasts now. But here's where it gets absolutely wild. Sophie's actually making money every single time they fine her. Let me break this down for you because what's happening here is genius. Sophie Cunningham has turned getting fined into a business model, and the WNBA has no idea what to do about it. The league thinks they're punishing her, but they're actually making her richer and more famous with every single fine. This is the story of how one player is exposing the entire system while protecting the face of the league. Caitlin Clark. Picture this scene. Sophie's sitting in the Indiana Fever locker room when her GM, Amber Cox, walks up to her with this smile on her face. In front of everybody, she goes, "Come here, Sophie, I have to talk to you." Sophie's thinking, what did I do now? And her GM just smiles and says, "Hey, they're gonna fine you again. $1,500 for a podcast," where she actually said the ref's job was hard and that she wouldn't be good at it. But Sophie just started laughing. You know why? Because that first episode of her podcast, Show Me Something, which just launched with Colin Cowherd's The Volume Network, probably made her $7,000 to $8,000 just from sponsors. The YouTube ad revenue alone from people watching clips of her talking about the refs, that's another $500 minimum. So she got fined $1,500 but made at least $8,000. That's a profit of $6,500 just for speaking her mind. And this isn't even her first rodeo. Earlier this season, she posted a TikTok where she lip-synced to Sabrina Carpenter's song with the lyrics "Stupid" or "Is it slow? Maybe it's useless," and tagged it at some refs. The WNBA fined her $500 for that. But guess what happened next? That TikTok got 1.4 million views. She gained 700,000 new followers on TikTok in 3 days, 244,000 on Instagram. Marketing experts say to buy that kind of follower growth would cost over $1 million. Think about that for a second. The WNBA fined her $500, and she got $1 million worth of social media growth. She went from being a role player to having over 2.7 million followers combined. She landed sponsorship deals with Ring, Arby's, and Adidas. She got offered a pro wrestling contract, all because she stood up for her teammate Caitlin Clark and called out the refs. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. Remember that incident back in June when Sophie literally fought Connecticut Sun players for messing with Caitlin Clark? JC Sheldon poked Caitlin in the eye, and Sophie wasn't having it. With 46 seconds left in the game, she grabbed Sheldon by the hair during a breakaway and pulled her to the ground. Both benches cleared. It was absolute chaos. Sophie got ejected, and the WNBA fined her $900 total for that incident. But you know what else happened? She became known as the enforcer. Caitlin Clark's protector, the teammate everyone wishes they had. Her jersey sold out on the Fever's website for weeks. She couldn't keep up with the endorsement offers. Every fine the WNBA gives her just makes her brand stronger. And Sophie knows exactly what she's doing. On her podcast, when her co-host West Wilson asked about the fines, Sophie said something that should terrify the WNBA office. She said 95% of people who watch the WNBA agree with her about the refs. She said finding her $500 isn't going to do anything. Then she looked right at the camera and basically dared them to keep fining her. But wait, it gets better. The WNBA can only fine players based on their WNBA salary, not their total earnings. Sophie makes about $100,000 from her WNBA contract, but with her podcast deal, social media earnings, and endorsements, she's probably pulling in $2 to $3 million this year. So when they fine her $1,500, that's like fining someone who makes $3 million about $45. It's literally nothing to her. Meanwhile, every fine generates headlines. Every headline gets her more followers. More followers mean more money from sponsors. It's a perfect cycle that the WNBA can't break because they've backed themselves into a corner. If they stop fining her, she wins. If they keep fining her, she makes money and wins anyway. Here's the craziest part that nobody's talking about. Sophie's fines are exposing a much bigger issue in the WNBA. While the league is fining players for TikToks and podcast comments, the players are fighting for their financial lives. At the All-Star game, every single player wore shirts saying, "Pay us what you owe us." The WNBA just signed a media deal worth $200 million per year, but players are getting less than 10% of league revenue. NBA players get 50%. Sophie even called out Commissioner Kathy Engelbert directly. When asked about the length of the season, Sophie said, "You can just tell Kathy to pay us, and then we can have a discussion." She's not just fighting the refs anymore. She's fighting the entire system, and she's doing it while making bank off every controversy. Think about the timing here. Sophie joins the Fever, becomes Caitlin Clark's enforcer, starts calling out refs for not protecting the biggest star in the league, and suddenly, she's everywhere. Podcasts deal with the volume, millions of followers, endorsement deals, pro wrestling offers. She went from the sixth woman to one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball. All because she refused to shut up and dribble. The funniest part, Sophie's literally telling everyone her playbook. On her podcast, she breaks down exactly how much money she's making from the controversy. She's showing other players that speaking out pays more than staying quiet. She's teaching a masterclass in turning WNBA fines into profit centers, and the league just keeps playing into her hands. Every time they fine her, she posts about it on social media with laughing emojis. She goes on her podcast and talks about it, which will probably get her fined again. It's an endless content cycle that benefits her and makes the WNBA look petty and out of touch. Let me tell you about the most recent incident that really shows how ridiculous this has gotten. Sophie's on her podcast just having a normal conversation about officiating. She literally says, "I know I mess up all the time, not saying your job is easy." She's giving the refs credit, but then she mentions that when there's a simple call right in front of their face, they should make it. Boom, $1,500 fine. The WNBA didn't even tell her directly. They emailed her GM, who had to pull her aside in front of the whole team. Can you imagine how embarrassing that is for the league? They're so scared of Sophie's voice that they're monitoring her podcast and finding her for basic observations that every fan makes during every game. But here's what's really happening. Sophie Cunningham has become the voice of WNBA players who are tired of being silenced. She's showing them that the fines are meaningless when you build your brand right. She's proving that controversy creates cash. And most importantly, she's protecting the league's biggest star while exposing its biggest problems. The numbers don't lie. Since Sophie started getting fined, her social media following has grown by over 2 million. Her engagement rates are higher than most WNBA superstars. Brands are lining up to work with her. She has her own podcast on a major network. She's making more money from being controversial than most players make from being good at basketball. And the beautiful irony, the WNBA created this monster. If they had just let her play and protect her teammates without the excessive fines, she'd still be a role player with 50,000 followers. Instead, they turned her into a movement. They made her the face of player empowerment. They gave her a platform she never would have had otherwise. Sophie even joked that she might end up with the highest percentage of fines to salary in WNBA history without getting suspended. She could legitimately rack up $10,000 in fines this season, which would be 10% of her WNBA salary. But when you're making millions from other sources, $10,000 is just a marketing expense. The real question is, what happens next? Sophie shows no signs of slowing down. Her podcast is growing. Her social media is exploding. She's becoming more powerful with every fine. At some point, the WNBA has to realize they're fighting a losing battle. They can't silence players in the social media age. They can't control the narrative when players have their own platforms. What Sophie's doing is bigger than basketball. She's showing every player in every league that you don't have to accept the status quo. You can speak out, build your brand, and make more money than the fines they throw at you. She's proving that authenticity pays more than conformity. And let's be real, Sophie's not saying anything outrageous. She's calling out bad officiating that everyone can see. She's protecting her teammates like any good player should. She's asking for fair pay in a league that's exploding in popularity. These aren't controversial takes. They're common sense observations that resonate with fans. The WNBA should be thanking Sophie Cunningham. She's generating more buzz for the league than most marketing campaigns. She's creating storylines that keep fans engaged. She's showing personality in a league that desperately needs more characters. Instead of fining her, they should be featuring her. But they won't, because the WNBA is stuck in an old mindset where players should be seen and not heard. They don't understand that controversy drives engagement in 2025. They don't realize that trying to silence players only makes them louder. They don't get that Sophie Cunningham has already won this battle. Every fine is a badge of honor. Every punishment is a profit opportunity. Every attempt to silence her just amplifies her voice. Sophie Cunningham has cracked the code, and there's nothing the WNBA can do about it except keep making her richer and more famous with every fine they hand down. The most incredible part? This is just the beginning. Sophie's podcast is only 2 episodes in. The season's only halfway done. She's got months left to rack up more fines and make more money. By the time the season ends, she might be the highest paid role player in WNBA history, and it won't be because of her basketball salary. So what's the lesson here? Sometimes the best way to beat the system is to make the system work for you. Sophie Cunningham didn't set out to become a millionaire from WNBA fines, but she recognized an opportunity and seized it. She turned punishment into profit. She transformed fines into fame. She converted controversy into cash. And the WNBA? They're stuck in a loop they created, finding a player who gets richer with every fine, trying to silence a voice that gets louder with every attempt to quiet it. Sophie Cunningham isn't just beating the system. She's exposing it, profiting from it, and showing every other player how to do the same. The real irony is that Sophie's doing exactly what the WNBA should want. She's creating content, driving engagement, protecting marketable stars, and showing personality. She's everything a growing league needs. But instead of embracing her, they're fining her. Instead of celebrating her, they're trying to silence her. And that might be the dumbest $1,500 decision the WNBA ever made. Make sure you hit that like button if you think Sophie's a genius for turning fines into profits. And subscribe with notifications on, because the way things are going, Sophie's probably getting fined for something else by the time you watch this, and you won't want to miss what happens next.